Hello, everyone. This is Eric Johnson, the brand.
And Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Welcome to our podcast this week, Aaron. We got a nice little topic here that's been going around the past month or so. I've heard a lot of athletes talk about this one subject.
Yeah. Should you have a training partner? That's a good question. That can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. So there's lots of facets to it, and I think an athlete should consider some of these things before they invite someone to come train with them or join another training group.
Right.
First thing offhand is the athlete as motivated as you are? That I think is very important. If they can't match your level of enthusiasm and motivation, probably not going to be a good match.
So, Aaron, are you saying like I can't take my buddy, my best friend, to work out with me, and he just, he's my buddy, he's just my buddy. I don't know about training, but he's not my, he's my buddy. You're not picking like that, right? Especially, these guys are serious when they come in here.
Exactly.
I mean, guys are trying to get better. Guys are trying to get bigger, stronger, faster, get their body movement patterns correct. So you're not really just trying to get your best buddy in here, are you?
Well, that's what I see a lot of times. I see, athletes who, they're best friends at school and they hang out all the time. So they just feel that's a natural fit. But there's a lot of things that you should consider. One, are you at the same development level?
That's a good one.
If you got two athletes that are really far apart in their development, then that might hold one athlete back, or it might frustrate the other. So that may not always be a good mixture.
Yeah, I see this a lot, though. I see a lot of guys come in and say, hey, I'm signing up over here. There's I got this guy working with me, and I think you should join. And the athletes don't match up. I think, a training partner doesn't have to be your best friend.
Right.
He has to be somebody that if you have somebody working out with you that pushes you and likes to meet that challenge and likes to kind of compete. I think training is competitive, and I think that comes out in your sport too. So I think it could be a good thing if you get a really solid, good training partner. If you do so, pick somebody that, like you said, is competitive and wants to really train and get better.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to match up on a couple of different levels. Again, the motivation level is the first thing.
Right. The
commitment level is another thing. The physicality might be a thing depending on the type of training you're doing. That's important. But I always tell athletes, don't get into the trap of, okay, I'm going to bring my buddy along and kind of pull him along with you.
Right.
The one that's not as motivated or not as committed. Because what will tend to happen is he will drag the other one down. Doesn't work the other way around. Right. An anchor slows you down. You never can pick up an anchor and move faster.
Right.
So I would stay away from that dynamic. I really urge kids not to do that. You're better off training by yourself. And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
I found that I got to a certain point in my career that I was actually training better when I was training by myself.
Yeah, you have that focus, don't you? You have that real good focus, and you know what you want to accomplish. And it's kind of like you get in that state of mind, and I don't know, you call it the zone? You hear that term all the time, but you get into a competitive zone when you train, and you can get into a state of kind of like automatic pilot when you get in competition, because you get into this trance, I feel, when you train, and you start getting in these places where you start to push yourself, and it's outstanding if you can do that and find that, because in competition, that's what really happens. It becomes very individual.
Yeah. For me, it was better because there's not too many times of the day that you actually can be alone with your own thoughts. And so
I like that.
That time of day when I was training by myself, it allowed me to work out a lot of things, whether it was just things about other things in my life, whether it's about troubleshooting some things about my sport and my training that I wanted to work on, because I wasn't kind of hamstringed at, hey,
Right.
this person doesn't need this, so we're not going to work on it.
Right.
But I need it. So they're really, when you're training by yourself, there's no compromises to make. And so it allowed me to become a more thoughtful and more insightful athlete on how I was doing things and my approach to doing things, and without any other external, distractions, allowed me to kind of zone in on me as an athlete and how I was training as an athlete.
Do you find that you and I train a lot of athletes? Do you find that those athletes who are training by themselves or with me are hitting by themselves or doing those things by themselves are more focused at times, when they need to do a task? What's your kind of your opinion about, where their focus is on just everything, how they go about the process of training? Do you think it's more focused or what?
I think you tend to be more focused because, again, you just have less distractions. Mm-hmm. And I've got youngsters in here that are 10, 11 years old, 9-year-olds, and you should just see them work out and the intensity that they have,
right,
doing the work by themselves.
Right.
And I can put one of those kids next to one of my major league guys, and there's not going to be any different on how they approach their training.
Right.
It's funny, and I just kind of laugh because I look at this little guy. These little guys, they come in here and they're fire and forget, and
right,
they know what to do, and they're focused, and they're asking the questions. Versus sometimes, and again, levels of maturity vary, but you
right,
can have some kids in here, or some are younger athletes in here, and they're not as focused because they're talking about some things that happened at school,
right,
and some of the social aspect can sometimes be distracting. But if you can, everyone flourishes in different environments, and
right,
you can use different environments, mm-hmm, for different types of training. So maybe if you're doing something that's a lot more high intensity, you may want someone else there,
right,
to add that competitive component.
Okay, I like that.
So even if it's not a direct competing sort of thing, you might be competing for times or competing for measure, competing for mark.
Right.
And that can bring more out of you than versus, by yourself. But then again, there may be those times where you have to learn about yourself as an athlete, I think, and become it, and to me, the growth that happens in your training is you being in tune with yourself.
Right.
And if you don't go through that process or give yourself the time to do that, then I don't think you're going to reach your fullest potential. And there's always going to be a day where, as you get older, not everyone is along for that ride. For success.
Absolutely.
And you've got to learn to navigate that by yourself sometimes.
You own your training.
Yeah.
You own your training. With that said, this is EJ, Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Check us out on all our social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all those other things. And hey, remember, tune us in next week.
See you later.